Our Heber City Representative Jeff Bradshaw and Robert Patterson. I'm Mayor Alan McDonald, and Mayor Bonner is joining us. She's with us too. Again, I'd like to express appreciation to the Heber Light and Power staff and management for putting our agenda together, and also thank them for running a great company. And we just want to appreciate them and all employees, all the hard work they do. Keep it going. On our agenda tonight, we have a consent agenda. And the items on that is our September 23rd, 2015 board minutes. We have our September 2015 financial statements, September 2015 warrants. If there's no modifications or changes, look for motion to approve the consent agenda.
Can I interrupt just really quick? I handed you resolutions that are basically to be included with the minutes for last September's meeting, and that so when we approve the minutes, we're also approving this form of resolution of what you passed last time.
This 17 one?
Yes.
Or the 07 one? What about the 08, is it?
It's coming up.
It's coming up. Oh, there it is, right there. Yeah.
This is from last meeting.
Yeah.
It's the Heber Light and Power Company's board resolution number 2015-07, authorizing the board chair to execute and deliver second mandatory power sales contract.
Primary concern was to make sure that the prior resolution wasn't affected by the resolution last time.
So this is part of that resolution I just read to.
We never have a resolution that will affect another resolution, will we?
Excuse me?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as a
Second.
A motion by Representative Mr. Bradshaw to approve the consent agenda, and a second by Representative Heber City Robert Patterson. A second. Any other discussion on the motion as stated? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We have item number 2 on our agenda, employee request for educational assistance. Anybody would like to, management, give us a little.
Yeah, I had an employee come and ask about going into a master's program. And since that time, I felt like, the cost of master's programs are such that those employees should probably come to the board and at least explain to the board what they're doing. And since that time, he has decided not to register this term, so he may be back at a later date.
It would be interesting what the cost would be for the company. It'd be interesting,
Oh, it varies, but master's programs all the way through, tuition and everything, are usually between $15,000 and $20,000. So,
What's the company done in the past on that?
current policy is that, requires recommendation from immediate supervisor manager to the general manager. General manager can approve it at 100% reimbursement, and then they stay with the company for at least a year. Currently,
Jason, can I read the criteria for that, just so we know what we're dealing with?
Yep.
It says the company will give financial assistance to employees enrolled in approved educational programs that are a direct benefit to the employee in the performance and skills of his or her position. To this end, 100% of tuition and book fees will be paid for approved education programs completed with a grade B or better. In the case of courses identifying a pass-fail grade upon completion, a pass is required. To obtain an educational assistant, the employee must have successfully completed the probationary period, obtain the general manager's prior approval of the program, and agree in writing to remain with the company following completion of the course for at least 1 year, or repay the company for the tuition and book fees paid by the company.
So what'd you say the cost was? Just
They vary.
can be, I know they vary, but
yeah, 15 to 20,000.
over a 2-year period.
Yeah.
I see.
Mhm.
Exactly.
wonder if there ought to be consideration of more than a year after for higher costs, maybe a graduated scale.
You know, the criteria to
$20,000.
me rests in that one statement that it must be directly related to the improvement of the current assignment given or possible future assignment. And I don't know, the cost, I think this is one the HR committee maybe ought to review and maybe bring it back into a little bit of reality. We talked about education, how it is important. Master's degree and even a bachelor's degree brings a higher quality of an individual into the business, but there are a few jobs that benefit by a master's degree. There are probably far more in the company that wouldn't, but
Well, I think that,
I think it's fine.
I think it's great to have it, but a $20,000 expenditure, I wonder if we ought to require more than 1 year.
I kind of thought that
Maybe you graduated for 10,000 or whatever's a year over, anyway. Because that's a pretty good commitment. You pay the guy and then a year later he'd bail out somewhere else.
well, and partial commitment on that, maybe 50% of that 100%, especially for a degree above a bachelor's, might be incentive and might be the guaranteeing force that would keep the person with the company.
Yeah.
That way they'd be assured that they were gonna stay and use that education here.
I think it's great to give them assistance to further their skills in whatever their duty is. But we need to keep them around after we
Yeah,
pay
I
for it.
want the further education, but if you meet that criteria, as Bob stated out, it means it's really an asset to the company. But I also look at it, if you maybe a master's, you may ask them, say, a little lengther time.
Like 2 years or so.
2 years, I've seen them from 1 year to 2 years. It's basically in that range of to be keeping them, but this is a larger, more expensive. The company would have to absorb if they bailed on us after a year. I'm hoping they would never do that. Figure that to me, I'm looking there probably if they're going to invest that amount of time in the degree they're investing in the company with us to stay in the long term. That's what I'm hoping for.
They should stay if they meet the criteria. If they focus on wanting to get a degree for a certain job in the company, I think they'll stay. I mean, you can't beat the company. But if they're doing it for other reasons, yeah, you need to set a criteria. I'd say 4 years anyway to get part of your money back out of them. But
That's part of the handbook tonight. We'll get into that part. Maybe that come up again when they look at that. But for this time, the individual said it won't go this term.
So it's not pertinent right now.
No, but it is something to think
It
about,
is.
because
Something to have.
it's going to come up. There's going to be others who want to, and I think that education is important to any company.
Yeah, and I think this employee's on track to get into a program at some time. So,
No, I think we could probably take a look at it and say, if they just stay a year, they have to pay 3/4 of it back. If they stay 2 years, they have to pay half of it back.
so,
I think that's a
Something
way
like
to
that.
graduate it too, yeah.
Yeah, might be something we
yeah,
could look at.
the only downside to those types of policies is actually collecting
I
after
how
they
do you
leave.
do that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you hold it, yeah.
So that's certainly something we can look at.
He's talked to me several times, and I think he's planning on staying.
Yes,
Yeah,
me too.
I mean, this particular employee that we're talking about, I think he's very much committed
He's
to the
pretty
company.
committed to the company, I think.
And,
Any other thoughts on the education part of that? And we'll get probably the handbook later to talk about it. Mr. Miller has our 2016 budget directives he's given to the board.
It's just that simple document put together last year as we're going through the budget cycle process. We're going to the point where we're finalizing amongst the management staff the budget for next year, so we can present the preliminary to the board next month at the board meeting, which is accelerated by a week due to Thanksgiving. So these are some of the key items that we build our budget off of. And I just want to make sure that we're in agreement with the board and the board's directives before we proceed with putting a budget together that has no possibility of passing the board. So, I've taken out my trips to Hawaii and Barbados. You won't see them in there anymore.
They're not in here, but they'll be in the budget.
They'll be buried.
They're in a different bucket.
So we'll start off real quick, the compensation strategy. This is one that we talked at length last year on. We visited at pretty good length in the audit committee meeting on Monday. The first thing on there is how we set our wages. This year, if you look at the consumer price index, the numbers are such that they've actually gone down by 1.5 points versus going up. So for the Social Security Administration to offer a COLA, it has to be at least 0.1 point. This year, where it's dropped by 1.5, the Social Security Administration is not doing a COLA this year for anybody on Social Security, and that's the pattern we tend to follow. Thus, as a recommendation for this budget is not to include a COLA for 2016.
Yeah, I listened to on the radio today. Social Security wasn't getting a COLA this year. Well, that's like interesting.
Yeah.
So okay, all right. Okay.
So the next part there is just our philosophy as where we stand in our market with our employees. We have to remember that when we compensate employees, we use it as a tool to not only drive motivation but also drive best practice and habits. And so if an employee is at their market, then in theory, whether they work for us or they work for our competitor or wherever, they're not going to make any more money unless they're doing stuff above and beyond their job duty and descriptions. So if we can kind of set the market as our target, then we'll have an easier time retaining our employees because it's as good here as it is anywhere kind of thing. So our idea is to, when it comes to compensating these individuals in our budget, anybody who's below market and whose performance evaluation reflects that they are achieving to their level of expectation and their, for example, somebody's in a position that requires 10 years of experience and they've got 8, there's a reason those 2 years of lacking experience could be part of the reason why they're not fully at the market, but the fact they worked here another year gave them 1 more year of qualification, so therefore they're